Connors, Degrassi, unpopular opinions. Degrassi, and about Craig's mom and all that. So, for context, this is huge. In season 1, the first ever episode was mother and child reunion, and everyone knows about Emma being catfished. But the subplot had Joey and Caitlin dealing with each other. Caitlin's engaged to be married, but she finds out via Joey that, Keith is not interested in marrying Caitlin and all that for some dumb reason. So anyway, it has something to do with because Joey, when he's seen in talking to Lucy and all that, Joey's reminded that, his wife's been dead for a year and that, Joey should go to the reunion and says Caitlin will be there. And I thought, oh, okay, Joey never married Caitlin. Okay, cool. So anyway, we didn't hear much about Joey, losing his wife and all of that. And then by season 2, the pieces fell together. As you all know, Craig basically decided to pop up out of nowhere, take pictures of Angie, that being Joey's kid, and people were weird. It was like, what the heck? Joey's not too happy with Craig hanging out around Angie, and of course, Craig's dad talks to Joey, and Joey agrees. Craig is being creepy. After Craig plays chicken with a train and thankfully gets saved by Sean, Emma and Sean go to Joey and tell him that, Craig has problems and it has to do with his dad and all that. He almost was hit by a train. And then, Emma stays behind to babysit Angie and then to try to see something about Craig. Soon we learn via everybody that, Craig is linked to Joey somehow. Craig's mom, why am I blanking on the name? Julia, thank you. Craig's mom, Julia, was actually the man Joey married and who had died from her disease a year later. The year prior. So logically, she left Albert, and Craig for that matter, to be with Joey. And of course, the whole thing is that, well, I guess I could make it an unpopular opinion. But the unpopular opinion is that Julia leaving Albert, or Craig's dad, for Joey is basically the catalyst of why Craig's dad basically beats Craig up. He's venting his frustration, and Craig is the whipping boy, as we call it. And then Craig lives with Joey for a while until Albert gets him back, but then Albert doesn't change his true colors, and then he dies, and Craig is happy about it, but sad at the same time. Terry tells him that beneath everything, you did care for him. So this whole thing's about Julia and all that. Basically, that why Craig gets beaten up and all that is because of Julia leaving Albert. Now, it's unsure if Albert technically did abuse Julia or not, but there are some people who actually think otherwise. So anyway, someone did a Reddit post, and that's Otherwise Purple, who did it 8 days ago. And for the context, this is being taped August 20th, 2022. And I apologize for how I look, because the sun has actually got into my basement window at an angle. But anyway, the question was posed. Did she leave Albert because of his anger and abuse? Makes me wonder, if so, why Craig stayed with him. You would think she would take him with her. That makes a lot of sense. Did I make a statement on this, or did I pass back? Oh, I didn't do anything about it. So I guess I kind of... Well, I'm going to do something different, and I'm going to share my opinion first, then the comments. So my opinion is, did she leave because of his anger and abuse? I think so, yes. I think that Albert somehow had a weird way of thinking about it. He may have been angry and abusive of Julia, but in my mind, it was actually made more prevalent once Julia leaves Albert, that Albert basically goes after Craig because, Albert doesn't have an outlet for his anger, and guess what? Craig is the unfortunate whipping boy. Now, for context, the term whipping boy refers to something back in what, the 13th or 14th century? I can't remember. That the English crown prince, there would be a boy younger than the prince, and if the prince did something wrong, then the so-called whipping boy would actually be whipped for the prince's mistakes. So once the prince made mistakes, then the other boy would be punished for it, in a sense. So anyway, yeah, and it's like, why Craig stayed with him? I have no idea. That's what gets on my nerves. It makes sense. Like, why would she not take Craig with her? I think because I don't know. It just I have no saying in this. Like, I have no clue. But yeah, it has to be because I feel like Albert needs an outlet to get his anger out, and poor Craig is the one who gets it. Anyway, so Central Hat even said, I'm pretty sure they had joint custody. Joey does not know about any abuse until Craig comes forward and thinks Albert is just protective of his son. Being that Joey and Angela recognize him easily means he's been around off and on. He wants to go back to his dad's full time once his mom died, since Joey was not his legal guardian. Craig also knows Emma from his mom and Joey's wedding. So he either lived with them or it was joint custody. But she died a year before the show started, so it was 2 years. That makes sense. It's like, maybe Craig was around and all that, but I think Craig being a little obsessive around Angie and all that led Joey to kind of get a little angry and all that. Someone said, I always assumed Albert used his power/money to take custody. And Craig never lived with Joey. He saw Angela rarely, probably with Julia, and then once she died, Albert would have put a stop to that. Yeah. Some kind of custody arrangement and all that. Yeah. People said, has always been that Albert had a bad temper, but to physically violent abuse her after his wife left him. And all that. Yeah, he pretty much had some money and all that. Yeah, and Albert was upset that his wife left him for a used car salesman when she was with a doctor. But of course, the biggest thing was RachaelVioleta, who always has been there and talked to me about the Raj situation, about what was in his head with the whole situation. She said, quite frankly, I don't think Craig ever lived with Joey and his mom because he didn't know Joey. He knew Angela. I think he knew what Joey looked like, but it didn't seem like they interacted. From what I remember, it seemed that Albert, Craig's father, was angry at Joey for stealing his wife. Well, yeah. Albert painted a situation of his wife leaving him for a used car salesman, but I don't think that's how it happened. I think she left because Albert was not that nice. Even if he wasn't physically abusive, he could have been emotionally abusive. And either met Joey shortly before or shortly after making the decision to leave Albert, because I don't think Joey would have pursued a married woman. I wonder why Albert kept Craig, and I assume that Julia initiated the divorce, infuriating Albert, and especially if she did leave Albert for Joey as he claimed, the courts may have decided against her for custody because this would make her infidelity the fault in the divorce. And she probably was awarded visitation rights. But I don't think Craig lived with Joey when his mother left Albert and moved in with Joey. And Albert had abused Julie, but once she was gone, Albert turned his abuse on Craig, and it was probably more physical and more angry because he was venting his rage on Julia, leaving at Craig, who was the only available target. Absolutely, that's what I thought. And to be fair, I never read over this whole thing. When I look at a post for a video and all that, I don't read everything. I just leave it for a few days, and then someone might talk about it. And she said, I don't remember Joey talking about Craig being abused as a kid, because if Julia knew, she would have told Joey, and Joey would have pursued that legally. Craig may have even liked or loved his father before the divorce. I think we were supposed to feel that Albert was so angry because Julia left him that he started beating his son, but that before he was more unpleasant and emotionally abusive. That is basically what I'm thinking. It has some validity to it. It makes sense. It's like that's what I've been saying, and this is before I read Rachel's comments. This is the first time I read Rachel's thing, and the simple fact is, yeah, maybe, yeah, Craig's mom left Albert because Albert was abusive. It doesn't have to be physical; it could be emotionally. But once Julia left him for a car salesman, Albert must have got so mad he needed to vent his anger. And guess who was targeted? Craig. And I guess because if Julia had initiated the divorce, the courts might have ruled against her, which meant that Albert got custody of Craig. And so obviously Craig was victimized by Albert. I mean, Albert was in a way nice to Craig, but that's only after he had hurt him, especially the one time he physically abused him and broke Craig's camera. Remember, Craig wanted to be a photographer. And then all of a sudden, his camera was broken, but Albert gave him money to buy a new camera, and then, you know, Craig wanted to use the money for him and Andrew to run away to British Columbia. Like, Craig running away to BC by himself is one thing. But I mean, yeah, the abusive father. And that's when Joey finally realizes via Craig's problems and also Emma and John that, that's the problem. And Joey allowed Craig to stay with him until Albert got better, but Albert technically didn't get better, and he was pissed off at Craig. Excuse me. So yeah, there's a lot of things to do with Craig's mom and all that. And the unpopular opinion in a sense is that, Craig's mom leaving Albert led Albert to get his Rachel and Craig. I don't know if many people agree with it or not, because it's kind of an unpopular opinion if you think about it. But the simple fact is, yeah, Rachel agrees with me. And we don't collaborate. We don't talk to each other about these situations. She put it in her writing, and that kind of somehow was similar to me. Fantastic, don't you think? But anyway, yeah. That's great. Anyway, I'm jumped on